So you love coffee, and you probably love San Diego. If you're also into politics, then there's another podcast show you should check out. It's called Voice of San Diego, a weekly news podcast for local politics nerds. Every Friday, the editors at Voice of San Diego break down the biggest stuff that happened that week, and then give their take on what it all means. You can check it out now wherever you're listening to this show. Again, it's Voice of San Diego, the podcast. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this special bonus episode of the Roast West Coast podcast. I'm Ryan Woldt, and I am kicking off Season 2 early. I had an extra mug of coffee this morning, and I just couldn't wait. Really, I had planned on adding my conversation with today's guest, Alden Hozouri, to a show a few weeks from now. But I just wanted to get this season going, so you all get to listen to this interview a little early. Alden did something really cool during the pandemic. He somehow opened a new coffee shop called CAFÉ LaTERRE in Solana Beach, California. In fact, they just opened, and I wanted to talk to him while he was still feeling the effects of working through the long process that it takes to build and get a cafe approved, and then to actually open the doors and see those first customers. It's always an emotional roller coaster to open a new hospitality business. Throw in this year-long and counting pandemic, and I've got to imagine the strings on his emotional harp were really getting tugged on. A little bit about Alden. He got his start at Ironsmith Coffee in Encinitas before moving on to set up the coffee program at Wayfarer Bread. He also started his own company, Crossings Coffee Roasters, before getting involved with CAFÉ LaTERRE. He's a busy guy. We'll jump into that conversation in just a minute. As for me, I've also been busy, growing the Roast West Coast coffee program. Season 2 of the podcast comes with a lot of new bells and whistles, including new interviews with coffee roasters, farmers, cafe owners, and more. Plus, 10 new episodes of the Coffee Smarter Education series featuring Chris O'Brien and newcomer Siri Simran Khalsa of Lofty Coffee. Go to roastwestcoast.com to sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the podcast embedded right into emails now, plus bonus content including SoCal coffee news and education. Roast West Coast even has its own dedicated social media feeds on Facebook and Instagram. It's at Roast West Coast everywhere. And if you want to do more than just listen, please join the Roast West Coast group on Facebook. There you can talk and celebrate coffee with other coffee lovers, and even some of the coffee pros that appear on this show. If all of that sounds like a lot, well, it is. It has been. Thankfully, I have some support this season. Several of my favorite local coffee pros have come aboard as industry legacy partners, including Zumbar Coffee and Tea, Leap Coffee, First Light Coffee Whiskey, Marea Coffee, Mostra Coffee, Cape Horn Green Coffee Importers, and even Alden's CAFÉ LaTERRE have all come aboard to help the Roast West Coast program bring you great SoCal local coffee content. You'll be hearing a lot more from our industry legacy partners as our seasons go on. As they said in Almost Famous, it's all happening. But for right now, I'm going to grab another cup of coffee. Here is a special bonus episode of the Roast West Coast podcast with special guest Alden Hozouri of CAFÉ LaTERRE. Hey Alden, good morning. Thanks for joining me in the moment. I want to set the scene a little bit. Roughly 2 weeks ago, you saw the end result of what I'm assuming was a long kind of journey of learning and working and COVID, and you opened your new Solana Beach coffee shop, CAFÉ LaTERRE, and I'm wondering, how long did it take to get you up and running this year?
Well, first of all, good morning back at you. It has been a journey and a half, to say the least. We did officially get our final inspection cleared about 2 weeks ago, and we've been kind of just hitting the ground running since. This project began right around October, November is when I was brought on board by this team to kind of give you like a bigger overlaying picture of this business. The cafe is owned by a company called Salon World Suites. They run the building on the Coast Highway, and the business is similar to a few other business models. I'm sure everyone has seen pop up around San Diego. Basically, they're landlords for independent spa and beauty professionals, everyone from hairstylists to estheticians, massage therapists, and everything in between. And part of their overall brand image was to have a cafe in the front lobby of each of their locations. This is our first location. We've got a second one coming up in June, July, projected, with plans to open up three more after that. So this project was kind of fun because the space given for the cafe was pretty small, not too small, can definitely make it work, but it was a great way to try to distill all my knowledge from previous cafes and all my years experience in the industry to create a space that was efficient, was capable of something high volume, still looked great, still looked functional, and facilitated serving customers both outside on the street as well as tenants and their clients in the salon itself. And to throw COVID in the mix on top of it definitely threw everything out of whack. Trying to be patient and coordinate with city and vendors and our contractors, electricians. Everything is already outside of a pandemic, a pain in the ass. And the city being shut down and everyone's just stretched to their limits, it kind of requires flexibility all around and even greater attention to coordination and detail, just to make sure that everything's moving forward in the same direction. And it took a long time. Like I said, it's March, end of March, and we finally got our card. But yeah, we're here.
You're here. In that moment, that first day that you kind of open the doors and are waiting for a customer to come in, what was that emotion that through all of this you had achieved something?
I think because it happened very suddenly. We part of what I was just saying a minute ago with flexibility and patience. We part of the overall process for those who aren't aware of what it takes to open up a shop. You've got multiple stages of inspections, and the final one is literally the end all be all. The health inspector comes and makes sure that everything is built to code, that everything is working and operational, your water runs hot, and then a bunch of other little things just to make sure that you are safe and ready to operate for the masses. And before that, we have what's called a mid-inspection, which is supposed to take place when your building is anywhere from 50 to 80% complete. Well, it had taken us so long to finally get through to the city to book our mid-inspection that they booked our mid-inspection when we were pretty much done with the build-out. And we wanted to see if we could, conflate and do our mid and final on the same day. Unfortunately, there were just a handful of small details that weren't finished yet, so the health inspector was not able to grant that for us. But knocked our mid inspection out, and then we immediately turned around and booked our final inspection. And then it's kind of a waiting game again until they finally get back to you and they say, "Okay, I'm free to come and inspect." And so we weren't sure if it was going to take a week or 5 weeks. And fortunately, we were able to pay for an expedited after-hour review, they call it. And he just called me up and he was just like, "Monday afternoon, I'm free. Does that work for you?" And we're like, "Yeah, okay, great. Let's do it." And he came Monday and knock on wood, we passed. And so we were ready to open up Tuesday. So Tuesday came and you're kind of just sitting in this okay, well, we did it. There's not a lot of fanfare. And so it was exciting for a lot of the tenants inside the salon who had been seeing this build out over months. So they're all excited to come and, support the business and, grab a drink, grab a bite to eat. I think for me, actually, the first time where I felt like a swelling of pride and accomplishment was just this past Saturday. One of the features of the cafe is we have a serving window to face the outside street, the 101 and the parking lot. So, communities around us, cyclists, surfers, they can all come up to the window, order off their phone or order directly through me. And, a handful of cyclists had found their way to the window and discovered we were open. And, we hadn't really been pushing for a lot of that outward exposure yet because there's still a small handful of things we're still trying to finish up, like our menu boards and, getting plants in the cafe, all the aesthetic details, final touches. But, word of mouth spread that morning. And, we had this small little rush of cyclists, maybe like 25, 30. And it was fantastic. It was so cool to finally be in the thick of a rush, as short as it was. And I think that was when I finally took a step back afterwards, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this feels good.
I know that feeling, and there is this long, drawn out period of where everything feels like it's moving at a glacial pace, and you can only do so much, and you're waiting on other people, and then all of a sudden, this wave hits you of just movement, and all that you've got all these other, you've got customers, you've got people in the salon, you've got all these things happening, and it can definitely be an emotional roller coaster. I think you said something really interesting to me is that you're inside the salon or part of it, but you have your own walk-up window. But does that mean, because this last year has been so crazy, does that mean you're also beholden to like COVID rules for salons and for cafe hospitality? I mean, there's a lot of overlap there, but there was certainly a time this last year where salons were closed, but like takeout, walk away wasn't. And so I'm just wondering if that is true for you guys or how you distinguish that.
That is a great question. Yeah, it's really unfortunate for the salon because they opened up about a year ago in January. And so the moment they had opened, within a few weeks or a couple months, like COVID shut them down, and then we kind of popped back into, I think, the red tier so they could open up again for like 3 months. And then we went back into purple tier and they shut down again. So it's like by the time we came out of our most recent lockdown, the salon had been shut for half of the calendar year, which was a real bummer for them. But, the owners, they are incredible people, and not to make this about the salon entirely, but just a quick plug. They were giving free rent to all the stylists for that period of time. They're like, if you can't work and make money, why should you have to pay rent, kind of a thing. So it was really cool to see them looking out for small businesses like that. And then in hand with that, it worked out really well because we had to be a little more delicate with our construction and our build out because we couldn't have them hammering away at concrete floors and drilling and doing all this work when there's people trying to serve their clients. So with the shutdown, the most recent shutdown, that was when we could take full advantage of like the emptiness of the salon and just go ham and get this build out done as quickly as possible. So, as a food establishment, we were, like you said, beholden to different set of rules. We could have been operational if we were fully built out and ready to go. But for us, the timing just worked out that we were able to finish up our construction in time.
Very cool. This is the end of the first week or the second week?
We just finished up our second week.
Your second week. So any surprises from these first 2 weeks? Now that you have a moment here just to reflect on it, anything that you've learned that you just weren't expecting after all this time preparing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think my biggest takeaway was how big of a demand for food there would be. Most of the cafes I've worked in, there have always been like little bites, protein bars, pastries, bagels, toasts with spreads, that kind of a thing. And, before we opened up, I had put up feelers out to all the stylists and even to the community around and just asked them, like, what kind of things do you like to see? What kind of things don't you like to see? And how can we make this a cafe for everyone? And there was a really strong response for more food-based items. But being a cafe of only 199 square feet, we barely got everything in just to be an operational cafe. There was no way in the world we could have fit food prep or, an extra refrigerator, freezers, all that fun stuff. So I had been working with a lot of local vendors and cafes to help supply food that we can pick up every morning and have fresh for everyone. And we finally got the first few rounds of those food-based items, like pre-made sandwiches, and they sold out like so fast. And it was like, I should have seen it coming, but I was still just like, nah, no, people are, usually fine with, the croissant and a coffee or, a bagel and a latte. And I think that's going to be my challenge is trying to keep up with, keep people fed.
Well, I think there's probably going to be you mentioned the Saturday cyclist rush. I mean, if you're riding your bike 30, 40 miles up and down the coast, you need some sustenance. So it'll be you're going to have to deal with kind of the ups and downs of the daily changes too, because the demand during the week might not be the same.
Exactly.
I mean, I just wanted to congratulate you on opening a new spot. I know it's a long journey and it's very difficult. I'm looking forward to getting down there soon. Things have been opening up. I am anxiously, waiting for a couple of jabs in the arm, like a lot of people, and that'll open things up for me as well. And how can people find this place in real life? And then how can they find your journey for Cafe LaTerre online?
All right. So the cafe is located on the 101 in Solana Beach. We are just south of Loma Santa Fe and north of Villa de la Valle. If you're familiar with the area, I'm sure you've seen there's a CVS, just like west of the 101, kind of in between those two streets. And we're attached to the CVS. There's a big parking lot, so parking is never an issue. And like I said, there's a walk-up window, so all you got to do is walk up and just wave, and I'll see you. As for digitally, you can find us on Instagram at CAFÉ LaTERRE. It's CAFÉ, CAFE, and then LATERRE. And our website is cafelaterre.com.
Easy peasy. Alden, really great to meet you. Thanks for joining me today, and looking forward to talking to you again in the future.
Oh, thanks so much. It was really great being on here. Looking forward to seeing you too.
A big thank you to Alden for coming on today's show, especially so soon after opening the new shop. Café LaTerre is going to feature Alden's own Crossings Coffee Roasters coffee, baked goods from Homage Bakehouse, food items from Woodsy Cafe, tea by Rare Tea Company, locally grown produce, and specialty chocolates from local chocolatiers. The list goes on and on. Head over to cafelaterre.com to check out the menu and photos of the new space right on the Pacific Coast Highway. Or just give them a follow on Instagram at Café LaTerre. Thank you all for listening to this episode and being excited for the upcoming shows on the Roast West Coast podcast. Starting next week, new episodes will come out twice weekly through mid-June, starting with a great conversation with Kayak Coffee Delivery's Brendan Abrams on Tuesday, and a brand new Coffee Smarter with resident coffee expert Chris O'Brien of Coffee Cycle on Friday. As I mentioned, later this season, Siri Simran Khalsa, the executive director and head coffee roaster at Lofty Coffee, will be joining the show as our resident roaster expert. I'm pretty excited to learn more about that side of the coffee business. If you've enjoyed today's show, and I hope you have, please share it with a coffee-loving friend. Just let them know they can search for Roast West Coast on any of the major podcasting platforms, including Apple and Spotify, or just sign up to get it right in their email inbox at roastwestcoast.com. But if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to give us a rating, ideally the 5 stars one. It really helps other listeners find a new local show like this one. Thank you for helping us spread the word. Tag at Roast West Coast on social media so I can find you too. And please send your coffee questions in so I can ask the roast experts. Or just join in the coffee conversation on the Roast West Coast Facebook group. All of the important links are in this show's notes. Finally, if you find yourself desiring some good coffee, please support your local coffee roasters and coffee shops. Know that while I was writing this show's script, I was also drinking a Zumbar Coffee Hummingbird Roast, which was shipped for free right here to the Roast HQ. Get your own at zumbarcoffee.com. This episode of the Roast West Coast podcast has been produced and recorded by me, Ryan Woldt. I hope this show finds you happy, healthy, and with at least enough sanity to make it through another day. And as always, be sure to drink good coffee.
Hey everyone, this is Cody from San Diego's first and longest running local beer podcast, Beer Night in San Diego. If you love the local beer community, check out Beer Night in San Diego, available everywhere podcasts are found. Each and every week we bring you great local beer discussion, beer education, news, and tons more with a touch of comedy. Check out Beer Night in San Diego to laugh and learn with us.